All right, so we're diving into something pretty interesting today. The Golden State Warriors.
Yeah.
A team that a lot of people kind of had written off.
Yeah.
And now they're showing some serious signs of life. And a big part of that is because of what their younger players are doing.
Yeah, it really is pretty remarkable how fast that narrative has kind of flipped,
Okay.
It wasn't that long ago that the talk was all about, the old guard, the core group, and there were a lot of question marks surrounding the younger guys.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it feels like just yesterday, everyone was saying Jonathan Kuminga was a bust.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were saying, oh, he's a failed project. He's got no feel for the game. There were even like whispers about him wanting to be traded.
Yeah.
And then you had Moses Moody, who was a lottery pick, and it seemed like he was just going to be stuck on the bench forever. Couldn't get consistent minutes.
Right.
And it felt like those 70 days or whatever it was leading up to March 25th, it was just all doom and gloom and questions and doubt. I think some fans even called it like the 70 agonizing days or something like that.
Yeah. It was a real kind of like a pivotal moment for the team. It really exposed, I think, some of the weaknesses and the lack of consistency from the younger guys that just really added fuel to the fire of all the skeptics who were like, see, I told you.
All right, exactly.
Yeah.
But then March 25th happens, and it's like someone flipped a switch. Kuminga comes back from his injury and immediately drops 18 points in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And the way he was attacking the basket was different.
Yeah.
It was like with a purpose. Even his three-point shot looked better. And then you have Moody, who's now starting.
Yeah.
And he's just solid on both ends of the floor. Suddenly, the whole vibe around the team changes.
Absolutely. And I think a big part of that is that Moody's ability to guard, multiple positions really well, coupled with the fact that his catch and shoot three-pointer has gotten so much better. I mean, he's hitting like 50% of his threes recently.
Yeah.
That provides a crucial element of balance. They've been missing that, they've had weaknesses on the wings, and he's really stepped up to fill that void.
Yeah, for sure. It's not just like that, because the Warriors kind of getting back on track. It feels like they're actually evolving.
Yeah.
Kuminga and Moody aren't just filling spots. They're becoming like major pieces of the puzzle.
Right.
This isn't a fluke.
Yeah.
It feels like this could actually change their championship hopes.
Yeah.
So let's dive into Jonathan Kuminga a little bit here.
Mm-hmm.
In the beginning, I mean, the criticism was brutal.
Oh, yeah.
People were calling him like a low IQ athlete because of all the turnovers and like just bad decisions he was making.
Yeah, I think low IQ athlete might be a little bit harsh, but it does kind of point to some of the inconsistencies you saw from him early on.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy is incredibly athletic. There's no doubt about that. But it almost seemed like he wasn't sure how to harness that athleticism within the team structure. Offensively and defensively, he was just trying to do too much too soon. Right.
But if you look at the numbers right before his injury, it's a totally different story. I mean, in his last 15 games, he was averaging over 20 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, shooting almost 50% from the field and 41% from three.
Yeah. That's not a guy who doesn't understand the game, right?
Right, exactly.
Those numbers show that he was really starting to get it, understanding spacing and timing. It seemed like the coaches were starting to figure out how to use him properly before he got hurt. And maybe in a weird way, that injury kind of built up the anticipation for his return.
Right. Yeah, and it seems like now Coach Kerr has found a very specific way to use him that's really working.
Yeah.
He's basically their primary slasher. He's constantly driving to the basket. Mm-hmm. And what does that do? It forces the other team to help on defense, leaving Curry and Thompson wide open for three-pointers.
Right.
And, that's something that the Warriors haven't consistently had for a long time.
Yeah, if you think about it, that kind of consistent threat at the rim is something that they haven't really had since Kevin Durant was on the team. And now Kuminga's giving them that. He can he can finish strong, he can draw fouls, and it makes their offense so much harder to guard because you can't just focus on the perimeter anymore. That's why I think he could be a real X factor in the playoffs.
Right, absolutely. Now let's talk about Moses Moody. It really felt like he was kind of forgotten,
Yeah.
I mean, here's a lottery pick with all this potential, and he was just kind of lost in the mix. Couldn't get consistent playing time.
Yeah, I mean, forgotten might be a little strong, but it definitely felt like he wasn't able to establish himself in the rotation.
Right.
And, it made people wonder, how does he actually fit into this team,
Yeah.
Will he ever really get a chance to show what he can do?
Right. And now suddenly he's essential. And it seems like it's for two main reasons.
Mm-hmm.
One, he can guard multiple positions really well. He's versatile defensively. And two, that catch and shoot three-pointer, I mean, 50% in the last few games, that's just lights out.
Yeah, and you got to think that Draymond Green has had a big influence on him. You know, Draymond is amazing at teaching younger players how to be better defenders.
Yeah.
And you can see it in Moody's game. He's moving better off the ball. He's helping on defense. He's not just standing in the corner anymore. He's really thinking the game.
Yeah. Yeah, and the stats back it up. In March, his net rating was the best on the team among the wings, plus 12.3. That means when he's on the floor, they're significantly better on both ends of the court. That's not a coincidence.
No, not at all. It really shows that he's making a difference on both ends of the floor. He's not just a shooter. He's a good defender. And, you know, for a team that wants to win a championship, that combination is super valuable.
Right, right. And this leads to all the talk about this potential death lineup 3.0 with Curry, Moody, Wiggins, Kuminga, and Draymond. And they've only played 48 minutes together, but in those minutes, their net rating is plus 24.6. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah, it is. And it's a small sample size for sure. But what's so interesting about that lineup is the way they all fit together. You've got Moody, who spaces the floor so well. He's a real threat that the other team has to worry about. Then you got Kuminga, who can attack those closeouts and make things happen. And then you've got Draymond, who's like the puppet master, you know, the high IQ guy who can get everyone the ball where they need it.
Yeah.
It just looks like a really potent mix of, you know, speed and smarts.
Right. And, you know, everyone was talking about how the Western Conference was changing, how teams like Denver and OKC were going big, and how would the Warriors adapt.
Yeah.
And suddenly they've got this answer. They've got speed, they've got shooting. They can switch everything on defense thanks to Kuminga's versatility.
Yeah.
I mean, they can play multiple styles now.
Right.
And that's a nightmare for other teams to prepare for in the playoffs.
Absolutely. And if you think about it, this all ties back to Steph Curry and how much longer he can play at this level. You know, now he doesn't have to do it all himself on offense.
Right.
These young guys can score, they can create plays, and that not only helps them win now, but it means they can keep winning even as Curry gets older. It takes a lot of pressure off of him.
Right. And it shows that Coach Kerr is willing to adapt.
Yeah.
I mean, for years it made sense to rely on the veterans, you know, the guys who had been there and done that. But now he's really showing that he trusts these younger players and he's willing to give them big minutes.
Yeah, it's like he's saying, you know, this is the future and we need to start building for it now.
Yeah.
Not just trying to win another title this year, but building something that can last.
Right, right. So looking ahead to the playoffs, based on what we're seeing now, what's the best case scenario? What's the worst case scenario?
Well, if Kuminga and Moody keep playing like this and they even get better, I think the best case is they go all the way to the NBA Finals. I mean, they have the potential to be one of the best teams in the West if it all comes together. But you also have to remember they're still young.
Yeah.
They haven't been in a lot of high-pressure playoff games. And if they can't handle that pressure, they could easily lose in the second round.
Right, right. And then, of course, you've got the wild card, which is Andrew Wiggins.
Yeah.
If he can get back to the level he was playing at when they won the championship in 2022, that changes everything.
Totally. I mean, if he's playing like that, then yeah, they could definitely be the favorites. His scoring, his defense, his athleticism, you know, it's all so important for them.
Right, and it's not just the fans and the analysts who are noticing this shift.
Yeah.
I mean, Draymond Green himself said, people forgot we drafted these dudes for a reason. Now they're showing it. And that's coming from a guy who's been there through it all.
Right. That's a big statement from a veteran leader. You know, he was there when they were doubting these guys, and now he's saying, I told you so.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's been working closely with Moody, so you can tell he's really proud of him.
Yeah. And then Steve Kerr said something like, this is the most versatile team we've had since 2017. And that's saying something, considering how good they've been since then.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge compliment. He's comparing them to one of the most dominant teams in NBA history. It really shows how much confidence the coaches have in these young guys and the way they can change the game on both ends of the floor.
Yeah, and you can see it in the fans, too. There's a survey that showed that way more Warriors fans believe they can reach the Western Conference Finals now. Like, it went from 39% in February to 72% now.
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge jump. It just shows that people are starting to believe again. You know, they see how much better Kuminga and Moody are playing. They see how the team is coming together, and it gives them hope.
Right. So to sum it all up, it feels like the Warriors aren't done yet. This isn't the end of the dynasty. It's like a new chapter.
Yeah.
And it's a chapter that could be really scary for the rest of the league.
Yep.
This isn't just about some old stars trying to relive their glory days. It's about a real reload, a genuine fresh start. And it's all thanks to these two young guys, Jonathan Kuminga and Moses Moody.
Absolutely. And these last few games of the regular season are going to be really important for them to keep building that chemistry. You know, they need to get comfortable with each other with these new roles so they're ready for the playoffs.
Right, exactly. And what's amazing is that Kuminga and Moody have gone from being role players to being like the foundation of the team, not just for now, but for the future.
Yeah, it's a really exciting development for the Warriors organization. I mean, you've got these young guys who are hungry to prove themselves, and then you've got the veterans who have already won championships.
Right.
It's a combination that not many teams have.
So for the first time in a long time, Golden State has this amazing mix of youth and experience. You know, they got the young talent with all the potential in the world, and they got the veterans who know how to win it all.
Yeah.
So I want you, the listener, to think about this. How is this going to change the playoffs? How is this new energy, this new blood going to shake things up? It's going to be really interesting to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, it is.
All right, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.
Thanks for having me.